이렇게 해주고 좋아. 이제 호의가 곧 공개가 됩니다. 제대로 공개하는 건 아니고 그냥 대충 간단하게 공개할 것 같은데 언제 하지? 빨리 하거라. 잠깐만.
From the front. Now here's your speaker, Don Lind, game director for Hearts of Iron.
호의 DLC 라 레지스탕스.
Hi everybody. I figured to make it fun, I'm not going to say anything about the new expansion on this one. Okay, no, I'm going to do that. I'm going to start off and do a bunch of updates on the community though, because I love numbers. So I'm going to show a bunch of cool numbers about the community and about the game. And after that, I'm going to get into the expansion for a bit. And after that, we're going to talk about the future. There's not really any Q&A at the end, so if you want to chat with me and ask questions, I'll be hanging out at the booth afterwards. Right, so numbers. Hearts of Iron is now 3 years old, actually, which I guess when you look at Paradox Games, it's still pretty young. I don't know how long CK2 was on, like 7 years or something.
오지게 성장했구만.
We've hit more than 2 million base game sales now, which...
개성장했는데?
That means that you guys are probably not just a tiny niche audience anymore, which is pretty cool. 2 million was like a personal goal for me. It's like, I think when a game gets really big. And even more importantly, HOI is more active than ever. Like the latest peak that I checked, that was a big peak because it goes up and down a little bit, was 660,000 players during 1 month, which I think is crazy high. It's the highest of all the Paradox games. And HOI has consistently had this like really high level. People just play all the time, whereas normally there's like big peaks around releases. But for HOI, people just seem to be playing all the time. I think maybe a big reason for that, you know, is the very active modding community, right? I think because the
모든 community가 좀 활성화돼 있다. 인정합니다.
And I'm going to get into the modding community stuff soon for you guys. But yeah, it's I think so, because, you know, we release content, but while we're making new content, it's going to be cool modding content. Speaking of content, another cool number, we now are at 193 dev diaries, which is insane, because I think I wrote most of them. And I don't remember that many. We released 22 major patches and probably like 5 times as many like small beta patch update things, because around releases, you know, there's a lot of small iterations all the time. So, more numbers. People love mods for HOI. HOI, I'm pretty sure, has the highest mod users of all the PDS games as well. That's 64% of the user base is using some kind of mod. It's generally smaller mods, but, you know, which Hearts of Iron has a lot of. The workshop's at 25,000 mods. And, but I think you guys are probably more interested in how the big mods are doing. And I like to follow up on this every year. So currently, we have Road to 56 in the top spot. They tend to be. And then Kaiserek in the second spot. Sometimes they kind of get closer depending on when someone has a
씨,
big
이거
release.
오류.
For me, a cool one is that
상대
Old
오류.
World
상대방들은
Blues is really
구독할
like
사람은
it's
다
climbing.
구독한 것 같아.
It's doing really quite well.
그래서
It used to be lower than the
로드
other
투
two
오류는
below it, but
가장 많이
it's gotten
성장했죠.
up now. Millennium Dawn and the Great War is still
아씨,
there,
모두
about
사용
2%.
유저가
Then there's a lot of ones
64%인데
under there, but I didn't want to make the list too big.
카라
Other
8%
facts,
성장.
the community, about 18% use the new custom rules system, which is pretty good. We really wanted to let people kind of tailor the game in the direction they want to go, and this shows that people are using it. The most used change, other than to say boost yourself so your own country is stronger, which is the most popular thing. I'm not judging. Is to change how US and UK plays. Like you mess with the AI basically if you want to have them go fascist or in other directions. About 13% adjust the difficulty settings for the national, like the specific nations. Otherwise, when it comes to like difficulty, most people play on medium or just on very easy. Honestly, in fact, 10% of the people who play on very, very hard actually max boost their own country as well. So sometimes I wonder if you guys want a challenge or not. Top nation still Germany, but people do play a lot of minors now, more than majors actually. At the beginning, when the game launched, there was mostly people playing majors, but now it's really moved on to minors instead. Right. Let's start talking about resistance, because I know that's what you guys really want to hear about.
1.8 breakdown.
So, as you saw this morning, this is kind of breakdown. We're doing France, French resistance, Spanish Civil War, espionage, the big one, revamped Intel. There's a bunch of small features. I'm not going to have time to talk about everything. It's too much for even half an hour. And we'll be really digging into this stuff in dev diaries once we start getting back to Stockholm. And I've slept maybe 1 or 2 days first too. And as the dog says, like I have some screenshots and stuff. It's super work in progress, everything. But we like to show stuff off anyway. So this is the Spanish focus tree, and it actually shows off a feature that we have now, which is you can zoom. Actually, we might have done this one in Photoshop, but anyway, we added zooming in focus trees now because the thing is just humongous.
오. 프랑스 뭐야? 프랑스.
We've been thinking about other ways as well to improve navigation of trees because it's becoming more and more important. But this, for me, is like step number one, the most important one, really.
와, 프랑스
So, Spain comes with, and also France, and France actually also gets more than one tree, technically, because you start off with the really big one. There's a separate one for Free France. There's a separate one for Vichy France. I think people are going to find it really interesting to play them now as we pit them together against each other. But I'm not going to dig too much into the countries now, because I guess you guys have read all our dev diaries already. If not, you can go back and do that. But they both have a lot of cool special mechanics. I mean, I think one sample here is the Conquest of Paris, but let's dig into other mechanics. So, resistance. Completely revamping resistance. Essentially, we want to give you kind of like the feeling of coring territory from EU4, in case you played that. It's a big interaction point for espionage. Resistance is really where you can send your operatives to mess with things, and I'll get into that in the future. We reworked all the laws. We split resistance into 2 parts. So there's now a thing called resistance and compliance. That means that you can have a very aggressively, resistant area, but it's still compliant because you got someone running it with like an iron fist, right? But it might be expensive to you. So it really let us model different areas in a lot better way. Biggest one that you're going to notice is that this removes garrisons from the map, like completely decluttering it, which is great. It's going to come with performance boosts for sure, although I haven't measured yet, but a lot less units tends to do that. And generally, it'll be an easier problem for the AI to manage. Some of the garrisoning stuff can be pretty difficult. So, let's move on to espionage. And this will be the first time you guys see this. So espionage really starts with the agency. And the agency is like an off-map building that you build. So you're going to actually, it's not political power or anything like that. You're actually expanding industry to build up the agency and its different branches. And this is like the hub that you have for all the new shadowy content. So you're going to be, you can prepare operations from here, you can recruit operatives. This is where you can become the spy master. And the spy master is a system we have, like in a lot of games, espionage can become this thing where a lot of small actors kind of pile onto you. And we really did not want that for Hearts of Iron, because there's a lot of stuff to do already, right? So we have a thing called Spy Master, and essentially that means that there's only really one per faction that can leverage the full power of espionage. And the size of, well, you know, how powerful you get depends on the size of your faction. So we sort of auto-balance the system. So in a normal historical playthrough, that means that you're going to have 3 kind of espionage power bases, like the Comintern, the Allies, and the Axis, right? I'm going to share a little bit about the department upgrades, but by the way, you can customize the agencies. You can pick different logos for it. You can name it whatever you want. So if you want to be historical Germany and have like a bazillion different agencies who can't decide which one's the ruling one, you can definitely do that. So here's different branch upgrades. And this is a way where you can decide how much you want to really lean into espionage as a feature. So because this is something that you trade off with industry, right? So if you're using it to build up the agency, then you're not using industry to, say, produce tanks or divisions, right? So it might not be the best idea to lean into this the first thing you do, right? You want to find a good opportunity for it. And certain countries are better suited for it, like Britain, for example, right? It's really up to you. If you want to mainly go into defense, it won't be that costly. You can focus on a couple of upgrades. If you want to use all of the tools, it can get pretty pricey, but you also get a lot of cool powers. And we have examples here is like, you can have suicide pills for your operatives. So if the enemy captures them, they won't get much intel out of them because, you know, they can chew their pills. Of course, you might lose some more agents that way.
What's that?
Here we go, operatives. These are sort of your stars of new systems. These are the guys that you send to build up networks in other countries. And networks really where everything starts. So an agent can cover a certain amount of area. So if you have something like in this example picture, we have more than one agent to cover an area optimally. In the network, you can run missions. And missions are a lot like when you can see at the bottom here, it's a lot like when you have orders for your armies, right? You give them an area on the map to do something specific. Examples here can be, you can do propaganda, you can do things like steer trade, so you can get your agent to schmooze up to the enemy, or the neutral ambassador, so to say like, you know, we need 20% more tungsten from you, Portugal, as an example. So that's one. They can also do a thing called operations, which we'll be getting to, which is like the next level of the missions. And they generally require you to have prepared a way, say, make sure there's resistance there, have a strong enough network, all that stuff. A lot of the espionage stuff builds step by step towards your goal, giving the enemy sort of ample time to stop you or start countering you, getting defense, getting at least warned. So, operations is like the next big thing, and generally you might have more than one operative together doing these things. And it can be good to have operatives that have been sort of trained up with better traits if you want to do tricky ones. So, here's an example of an operation. Hopefully shows enough in the back row. These things come with quite a bit of an investment. Actually, the example here is pretty cheap because it's a gatekeeper operation. What this one does is that you send in some agents to get a local contact in the resistance in a country, which essentially places like a token. So that's like your guy on the inside. And that's a gatekeeper to doing a lot more involved operations later. Once you have that kind of stuff, like say you get a guy on the inside of the military or the navy, Then you can
몇
start
개의
doing all sorts
시스템을
of stuff like stealing
몇 개의
technology
시스템을
through
통해
those.
그것들을 해서
Things like coups, for
장비랑
example,
네트워크를
rely on
구축해서
having a lot of this stuff in there. And coups are becoming an operation instead of a diplomatic mission.
뭐
So there's a lot more interest and play to them. In fact, you can target
사보테이지가
where you
이제
want them to happen and all that
저항
stuff.
이제 활동하는 거 그런 거.
At the bottom here, we're also showing kind of a cool new operation, which is to set up
네,
collaboration
저항군이 합류하는
regimes.
거.
And if you want to have a historical example, this is like getting Quisling in Norway to kind of prepare the way for you as you invade. And that can be really good for Germany. You won't have time to do this everywhere, but doing it in a couple of places is going to make them capitulate easier and start them off with a much higher compliance value. So you won't have to deal with as much resistance. You can get more out of the area. And then the Norwegians can be pretty angry about you for many years afterwards. Oh yeah, we also have a bunch of historical
그다음 페이지
operations,
살짝 공개될 것 같아.
like the heavy water raid, for example.
더 역사적 작전.
So,
이건 뭐야?
if you guys noticed, one of the department
Cryptography.
upgrades is for cryptography. And I don't know how many who know who Alan Turing is, but we really wanted to
앨런
capture
튜링? 내가
the
팬인데.
Allied code cracking effort here.
튜링
And
형님, 튜링 테스트.
what happens here is that if you've
이거
developed your own
이제 그 독일의
cryptology
애니그마랑
department
뭐
in your
영국이 이제
agency,
독일 애니그마
you'll be
해독한
able to
그 뭐야
send them
앨런
to
튜링 그거 뭐야 이름 갑자기 기억 안
crack the
나.
code in certain countries. If you crack the nation's code, and by the way, you can
뭐야,
also
튜링
build
테스트.
up
아,
your
그
own
뭐야,
crypto to be stronger. There's also interactions with operations where you can say send someone to steal the Enigma, which will be a huge help for you trying to crack their code. But anyway, once you cracked someone's code, you're going to get a bit of a passive benefit to
어쨌든
it.
그 튜링기
But the
만들었나?
problem
그
is you
애니그마
cannot
해독하는 거
fully
만든
use
사람이.
this knowledge because if you go and just straight up hit all the German transports, for example, they're going to know
이걸 안
that you
막으면
can read their
레지스탕스도
radio
못 막나?
transmissions, right? So you have a trade-off choice here, which is you can decide to fully use the information. That gives you full intel, a lot of bonuses, like especially to naval invasions. So as an example, right, as the allies, this is something you want to do as you're about to do
아,
D-Gave, for
작전이
example.
생기면서
Right?
그
That's gonna
작전을 미리
maximize the
알기
benefit
위해서
of this.
이제 암호 해독이 필요하고 이제 그
Uh,
암호 해독하지
What we
못하면
try
그
to do with a
작전에서
lot of
주는
these features is to
이제
try
뭐
and
여러
like
이득으로 인해서
embolden
많은
different
페널티를
areas. So
받는 뭐
like, for
그런
example,
건가?
I'm saying it's getting harder and harder now to manage to invade and liberate France. Several of these things together, like say I'm sending weapons to build up the resistance in the area. That's going to now have certain effects. So the enemy can't redeploy into the area fast to close a pocket, for example. You have the cryptography bonuses, and all of these things together is going to really help you kind of like dig in. And finally, and I think I'm going to have to go a little fast now, so we'll see. Intel,
인텔이
we're revamping the
CPU 이름
Intel
아니야?
system,
내가 아는 인텔의 CPU
and
이름밖에
we're going to be
없네.
splitting up Intel into several parts. So you'll have like civilian, military,
뭐 아니면
air,
지적이 뭐
and
이런
naval
뜻이긴
as
한데.
well. To give you an example, right? You might have very good naval intel on someone. That means that you can see where they place their patrols. It means that you can see where their trade routes are, which means you can completely optimize your submarine forces, for example. When it comes to land and air, there's all similar effects there. A lot of these things are gained now over time. So you have new units, like recon companies and scout planes that are going to help you gather this
뭐
information. Just straight up fighting is going to give you the information as
그러니까
well. Trading with
리더의
people,
지능을
there's a
뭐
lot of different sources to gain the
업그레이드 시킨 거야?
intel, and it all comes
뭐야, 이거?
together in a new interface we call the Intel Ledger, which sort of replaces the detail view that we had before.
뭐 이건
And here you can
지능을
like super
업그레이드
dig
시켜서 뭐
into a
다른
lot
애들
of
거
details
세려나?
about the country, switches out map modes so you can go through and like
다른
check
애들 거
different
세배우는
areas so you
거
can
같다.
figure out where the
뭐
main
첩보,
factories
옛날에
are,
그
for
모드에
example,
첩보하고 뭐
where
그런
their
건가?
air bases are. It just basically it lets you
키우는
make
거.
more informed choices about how to tackle enemies. And all these things, of course, work in peacetime as well, although it's certain things like military intel might be easier once you're actually fighting the enemy tanks to see what they are, right? But being able to spy on someone with scout planes, say in multiplayer, before the war starts can be really invaluable to figure out what their build strategies are.
멀티플레이에서 매우 가치 있을 것 같은데.
And then finally, I just want to have a couple of words about
그만은
the
이제
future.
제대로 게임을 하려면
And
신경을 써야
of course, when
된다는
you
얘기고.
talk about the future, you have to have plausible deniability dog on there.
랜드 어페어?
Because otherwise someone's going to
okay.
screenshot this and put it on Twitter and go like, hey Don, why didn't you do this thing? Generally, we've sort of been doing the things, but you know. To start off, I think the big areas we haven't really done much with
소비에트에
HOI
대해
yet
묻는다.
is
아니
land
소련도
warfare,
솔직히
which
업그레이드
is
좀 해줘야
ironically
돼.
kind of the core of the game, right?
난 프랑스랑 소련이랑
Air
같이 나올 줄
warfare, we did a
알았는데.
bit of stuff initially, but I think there's a lot more that can be done there. Politics, and especially like internal politics, the difference in ideologies. Because I know you guys love things like monarchies. The neutrality ideologies become really crowded, and it's kind of unspecific. It's an area where like pretty much the whole dev teams want to do cooler stuff for it, really. So I think those are like logical things you might be seeing in the future. There's also a lot of people asking about Soviet Union, which makes sense. It's a really big country. It's super important for World War II. And we absolutely could not fit it into this DLC because it was already smack full of Spain. But I think it's a pretty logical one that you can see in the future. It's one where we really want to be building up to it because I think the Operation Barbarossa is like one of the most important parts of a good World War II game. And step one for us has been doing like a solid resistance system. And I think it's logical to be looking in Soviet direction next time. But I mean, no guarantees. There's also like Italy that a lot of people want to see. And I could totally see ideas combined with all of these other
어쨌든
bullet
게임이 좀
points for
더
that.
논리적으로
I think
플레이를
Hots of Iron has a
해야
lot of future
전략적인.
forward. Like we're definitely not out of ideas yet, so.
아이디어가
And
없다고.
that's it.
아,
if you got-
아직 아이디어가 떨어지지 않았다고. 그래서 끝난 거니?
So as I said, if you want to have more detailed questions, just come grab us over at the booth. See ya.
뭐야 왜 안 틀어줘? 안 틀어주니까 직접 봅시다. 잠깐만. 직접 봅시다. 이거 우리 안 봤지? 다 안 보셨죠?
Claude, my darling, by now you have heard that the Germans have discovered our operation, and I fear they will soon get their way. We still wait for words from our friends overseas. We tell them what we know, and yet we are starved of resources. If this is to be my last letter to you, know that I have no regrets. For I wish to be as brave as all those who have gone before me. All those who fought for France. Be brave, mon amour. Vive la résistance.
야, 스텔라리스도 봐야 되는데. 이것도 공개됐나? 여기에 있던데. 여기에 있거든요. 어디있지? 여기 있었어요. 이거다. 이거 맞나? 티저. 얘는 티저인데 오른쪽 건 티저고 왼쪽 건 공개된 거겠지. 이제 이거 끝나고 스텔라리스 하거든요. 오, 음악 비트 지리고. 이거 좀 이따 공개될 건데 몇 분 남았어? 30분 정각 1시 정각이 하니까 얼마 안 남았네요. 옆에 것도 볼까?
And in conclusion, the signing of this historic treaty marks the prelude of an unprecedented era of peace, diplomacy, and unity, putting an end to the devastation of a war that plagued our nations for too long. So today, we celebrate the foundation of our federation.
아니 둘 다 나오는 거야? 야씨 호이나 하나인데 얘네 두 개야? 어허 이 호이도 두 개 내줘야지. 너무하네 이거. 1시에 공개가 되니까 5분 남았네요. 5 minute. 그 5분 동안 난 이걸 만들고 있어야겠다. 탁 해주고 어차피 나는 또 사겠지. 하이 안녕하세요. 1시 2분 남았네. 근데 이거 1시 정각에 시작을 안 하더라고요. (3분) 2분 남았다 이제. 근데 이게 1시 정각에 시작을 안 하니까 한 3분 남았나?
Stellaris, a
Oh,
signal
Stellaris 떴다.
from the future. Here's your speaker, Daniel Murigoa, game director for Stellaris.
스텔라리스. 굿.
Hello, everyone. It's nice to see you all again, and I hope you've had a great PDXCON thus far. I think it's been quite interesting to see all the announcements today. Especially, I was really looking forward to the CK3 announcement. It was really cool to watch it from on top of there. What did you guys feel? Yeah. It was really cool to see that. It's really fun to actually that we're finally, as a studio, releasing a new generation of grand strategy games. But anyway, let's talk a little bit about Stellaris. So, first of all, I want to tell you that I'm going to try to run through this presentation in about 15 minutes so that we have some time over for questions. And if you want to ask questions, you actually have to go into the PDXCON Discord and then go through the main stage channel and post your questions there. And then someone will get them to me on the screen here in front of me.
PDXCON 디스코드 채널이
So,
있어?
as far as I've been
거기 질문
informed,
하라는데?
even though you're not here at PDXCon, you should still be able to go into the Discord and ask your questions.
산 사람들
And I hope that's true. So, let's start. This will be a presentation about
아니네.
our next
다 들어갈 수
expansion,
있네.
Federations. I will be
좋았다.
going through the features in more detail.
저도
So we'll be
지금 들어간
talking about the
상태거든요.
Federation rework, the Galactic community. We'll be talking about the new background stories in the form of Origins, and something we didn't actually talk about during the announcement show, which is some new big stuff. So let's jump right into it. The new Federation system. As I talked about during the announcement, the Federation system will feature new Federation types. It will feature cohesion and experience, how to level up, and you can also get Federation perks and Federation laws. And I will now go into
아,
these
여기서
in more
질문을
detail.
열심히 하고
So,
계시구나.
we have 5 different Federation types. Each has a different passive effect, as well as their own set of perks that they will unlock when they level up. One type is the Galactic Union,
연방
which is
타입.
the more default
Level up,
federation
or
that has the
level
focus
up.
of making it easier to collaborate in a larger federation. Next up, we have the Trade League, which as its passive effect gives you a new trade policy called Trade League, which encompasses all the bonuses of all the other trade policies combined. So quite powerful. And then we have the Research Cooperative. As the name implies, this federation type is oriented around common technological advancement. And their passive effect is that they have free and automatic research agreements between all members. They will also be able to unlock perks that further increase how strong that research sharing is, among other things. And for the more militaristic players,
그렇네요.
the Marshall
연방.
Alliance
이름
is a
그대로인데.
federation type that is oriented around having a large federation fleet that is also very powerful. And lastly, we have the Hegemony, which is a federation type that is oriented, oriented around one strong member and a couple of weaker or smaller empires around it. And this is passive effect. It makes it impossible to leave the federation without getting permission from the president. And the president can also get a war goal to force people into the federation. So I think that's going to be quite exciting. So what's the challenge with a federation, then you ask? Well, in order to level up, or well, gain experience and level up, you actually need to maintain your cohesion. And there are several things that reduce cohesion, but are also actions that you can take to increase cohesion. For every member you have, and the more diverse your ethics are, the larger penalty to cohesion you have. And you can offset that by assigning envoys to your federation. More about envoys later.
디스코드 채널에 지금 들어와 있는데
And as you gain experience, you will level up. And when you level up, you will get access to new federation perks, depending on the type you are.
여기서 질문을 하고 있어.
Federations usually have 2 perks that affect all the members, and then 1 perk that only
체크가
affects
많이
the
되는
president.
거는 질문 답을
But the
해주는 건데
hegemony swaps that
체크하는 게
around. So you have
있어요,
2
여기.
perks for the president and only 1 perk for the members.
사람들이 보고 체크를 많이 하면 답을 해주는
You also get access to federation laws, so that you can further customize your federation. For example, there's a law that now determines how large your fleet contribution is. So it's no longer that you send 20% of your naval capacity by default. It will instead depend on your level, but also your federation type. For example, the research cooperative will not start with any fleet contribution active. So it will not have a federation fleet by default. It will need to level up and enact the law that said that we're going to have a fleet. And they also cannot get the highest level of fleet contribution, which some other federation types can. There's also laws that let you decide how the president is chosen and for how long there will be president. So it's no longer only the strongest one. You can change it to be rotating, random, highest diplomatic weight, and more about that later, or challenge. So you can engage in a challenge between the strongest empires or the ones that choose to participate. Or you can also engage in a psionic battle where all your psionic pops will sort of muster psionic energy to try to defeat the other side. Let's move on. And now we're going to talk a little bit about the galactic community. As I talked about briefly during the announcement show, this is more akin to a United Nations in space. And its goal is to make diplomacy on a galactic stage more interesting. And how we do that is mainly through the resolutions. The resolutions are laws that affect all the members of the galactic community. And they are very varied in their effects. They're actually designed in the way that they should be very contentious. Like, is this something that's good for you, or is this something that's bad for you? Even empires that are friends might have different agendas in which resolutions should be passed. For example, you can have a resolution that increases trade value and trade protection, but as a sacrifice, you have to give up naval capacity. So that might be good for one type of empire. And as another example, we can have a resolution that increases how much diplomatic weight or influence in the galactic community that you have by having a large fleet, for example. So let's go into diplomatic weight a little bit. This is a new type of score system, sort of, that checks, how strong is your fleet, how rich is your economy, how advanced is your technology, and so on. So it looks at your empire and picks a different of factors and then gives you a diplomatic weight. And there's different sources that increase how much diplomatic weight you gain from, for example, fleet power. So as you can understand, different resolutions can make different empires more influential by passing certain types of resolutions. Resolutions are voted on using diplomatic weight. So how it works is that any member of the galactic community can propose a resolution. And when it's proposed, it goes into the queue that you can see here to the left. And the resolution that has the most amount of support in terms of diplomatic weight is the thing that will be on the top. Only one resolution can be voted on at a time. So when a session is, when a resolution is in session, that's for right now it's 5 years, then it's when actually being voted on. And then the next thing that gets voted on is the thing that's on top of the queue. So you are able to gather support for your resolutions and push them up the proposal queue and then to have them voted on. And a way to do that is with the new favor system. So we've designed that you should be able to interact with this system even if you are using it in player versus between players. So what favors do is that you can borrow a certain amount of diplomatic weight from an empire for another empire to use for a resolution. So for example, if I have 10 favors that I call in from someone else, it means that I can add their whole diplomatic weight to a vote or a proposal that I want to push for. You're also able to assign envoys to the galactic community. And envoys are very similar to diplomats in EU4, so they have lots of different purposes. And by assigning them to the galactic community, you will have more diplomatic weight. There are also resolutions that can set a galactic focus. For example, to form the galactic market is no longer done through an event that happens when enough empires know about each other, but it's rather something that you have to pass as a resolution in the galactic community. So that's pretty cool. There's also different focuses that you can set, and there can only be one galactic focus active at a time. You know, when the galaxy is being invaded by the Scourge or the Unbidden, usually AIs had to sort of be threatened enough to react for it. And we're not changing that, so galactic focus will be that, you know, you as a galactic community decide or declare that this invasion is a threat to the galaxy and we must join forces to beat it. So you will now be able to set a galactic focus that is, for example, defeat the crisis. So it means that when that has been voted through, you are able to, you know, open up your borders with all the other members and help out. So it becomes a little bit more clear when that actually is happening. You can also form the Galactic Council, which works a little bit like the Security Council. So you get access to special powers, such as veto rights or emergency measures. Emergency measures allows you to push up a resolution to be voted on quickly. For example, if I'm a member of the Galactic Council and I'm being invaded by the Scourge, because I am around the edge of the galaxy, I can push for an emergency resolution to declare that this is a threat to the galaxy. We all need to join together to fight them. So as you can see, there's a whole bunch of different things you can do. I can't even go through all of it, so maybe someone has some questions later. But let's move on. The origins. We have already posted a dev diary about this, outlining how the basic system works, and I think people understand. But let's repeat it quickly. We always liked how the civic system added a lot of customization to your empire. And Origins allows us to build upon that system and to make further use of what we believed was untapped potential. So Origins allows you to pick a background story for your empire. And let's go through some of these examples. The Shattered Ring origin allows you to start in a Shattered Ring world. And the Void Dwellers origin means that you have fled your former homeworld that's been destroyed, and you now live on habitats instead. So you can build habitats earlier, and it's also harder for you to live on other planets because you've become so used to living in the void. The Scion origin allows you to start as the vassal of a fallen empire with some more interesting interactions. The Remnants origin, it will start you on a relic world where you can rediscover the former glory of your empire, mainly through archaeology sites and things of that nature. And lastly, out of these examples, we have the Tree of Life. This is an origin unique to hive minds, and it gives your homeworld a tree of life that gives you powerful bonuses. But it's not very good for you if you should lose it or if it should be destroyed. In fact, it will be quite disastrous for you. The expansion will feature a whole bunch of these new origins, and we are really happy to add them because we think they're going to add so much to Stellaris, add a whole lot of more cool starts for you to choose from. So even if you're playing the same type of empire, you can now do it differently because you're picking different origins for them. I think that's...
와.
Thank you. We are really excited for this feature, and when Federations is released, we will have, I believe, 18 different origins for you to pick from. And I'm pretty sure a lot of you are going to end up having 60 origins to pick from because you're going to install a lot of cool mods. So really looking forward to seeing what the community is going to come up with here. I think this is a great amount of potential. Big stuff.
우와, 이 뭐야?
Let me take a guess. There's no one here that
What's
thinks adding bigger
this?
ships is a bad idea. In fact, I think adding bigger and more badass ships is always a good idea. So, the Juggernaut. This is something that's been quite requested a lot, actually. It's basically a mobile starbase combined with a colossal warship. So it can build ships, it can repair ships, and it's really strong. So it's going to be an excellent forward space of operation during offensive campaigns. So as you can see, even for those of you who might not want to dabble in the intrigue and politics of the galactic community, you still have some really cool stuff to do. No longer can you not indeed proclaim that you are the Juggernaut, because that is now possible. We're also adding a new mega structure, which is the mega shipyard, because why not build a lot of ships really fast, right? Right, let's quickly go through lithoids. It will be released next week, on Thursday, in fact. So it will feature 15 new portraits, including also on top of that, one extra robot portrait. New ship sets, voice pack, but this time around also some unique gameplay. So let's talk about that a little bit quickly. 4 unique traits. The lithoid trait itself means that you now eat minerals instead of food for your pops. You have better habitability, but as a to balance that around, you also have a little bit of slower pop growth. But on top of that, there's something cool that actually on your home world, you will be able to dig out some of your hibernating pops from your home world's crust. So it sort of works like clearing the slums for most regular empires. So you can clear a blocker and gain a new pop. This is to offset the fact that we don't want the start to be too slow for lithoids. We also have some unique traits, for example, like the scintillating skin, which makes that rare crystals flake off the skin of all your lithoid pops. So, I want to go into some questions now. I'm going to step over here and take a look at what the questions actually are. Let's see. All right, here's a good one. It's a Stellaris/general grand strategy question. Will we ever be able to rebind our keys? Yeah, I know, it's a little bit embarrassing. It's living in the 80s here. It's something we want to do, but currently, it's not in the plan because we are using, the current old engine. But I'm really hoping that the next generation of games will feature that. I'm not going to promise anything for any other games.
호이는 이게 DLC가 공개돼도 굉장히 늦게 나오거든요. 그래가지고 별로 안 좋아. 스텔라는 금방 나오겠지. 올해 안에 나오겠지. 호이는 또 내년에 나올 거 아니야.
If we're a question here, some person is wondering if we are going to rework other types of phenotypes and give them more unique mechanics, like lithoids. And the only question I have is, maybe? It depends on what ideas we have, because lithoids really felt like they have to eat minerals instead of food, because it just made so much sense and we really wanted to do it. So it really depends on what idea we have, because you can also ask yourself the question like, would this be better as a general trait that everyone can have? I don't know. Let's see. All right. Someone is asking, what's the difference between a hegemonic federation and just having vassals? Well, I mean, they still have some sort of freedom when you're in a hegemony, because you actually get bonuses by being in the hegemony. As an example, the perks that are given to the members actually give them like resource production bonuses, which is not applied to the president. So it is actually beneficial to be in a hegemony if you are a smaller empire, because you will get pretty strong bonuses. But it doesn't work the same way as vassals do. But I mean, if that's something people can be asking for us to add more interactions with hegemony and how vassals work, I mean, it's obviously something we can take a look at in the future, because we listen to you guys and you guys have a lot of cool ideas that we want to accommodate, right? Sorry, one moment. I'm just going to see what the time is, because it's probably fine. It says I'm a little bit over time, but I know that the grand strategy panel is going to be right after us, so there's no rush. I still have like 4 minutes left. Let's see. There's a question.
4분 동안 질문 받는 거임.
Are the federations specifically designed to work in tandem with megacorps, giving trade bonuses and potentially have merges? Yes and no. The federation types cannot be formed by anyone. So it depends on what type of empire you are that decides which types of federations you can suggest to form. So for example, the Trade League can only be formed by a megacorp or an empire that has the Merchant Guild's civic. There's also other examples like that. The question is if the Blorg will finally find friendship. Maybe. It depends on how much they actually manage to accomplish in the galactic community, I guess. Because maybe they can pass a resolution to enforce friendship, but we'll see. That's not in the game right now, by the way. It's a good idea, though, maybe. There's a question that I see that there's a Senate floor in the galactic community. Can one become the Senate? Technically, yes. So the Senate floor is actually what we call where the votes are actually taking place. So you have the resolutions that are being proposed, and when they're in session, they are on the Senate floor. And the Galactic Council obviously has greater influence on it. So I mean, technically you could give the Galactic Council more powers, and then by chance maybe reduce its members count to 1. And then yeah, you can see how we can expand that in more evil ways in the future, because I know that's what you're all thinking. Let's see. Origin question. Someone wonders if there's a origin system that would work similar to how the feudal civic works. A start where there's a feudal lord with vassals or something similar. There's actually more origins that I didn't talk about, and we will be sharing all the origins in future dev diaries. Actually, all the features. We will be writing dev diaries about each feature in more detail, because I still can't, on this presentation, cover every detail. There will be, for example, an origin that starts you in a hegemony federation with some, sort of vassal states. There's also another origin that starts you in a, a more friendly federation. Will purging lithoids give more minerals? Yes. It doesn't... I mean, they're made out of rock, so yes, they should. Right.
Good. Done.
I'm getting the warning that it's only 4 to 5 minutes until the grand strategy panel. So I think it's time to actually say goodbye for now. I'll actually see you guys in like 4 minutes again, together with all the other game directors. And we're going to answer even more funny questions. Maybe we'll see what the other game directors have to say about rebindable keys, because that's such an important thing to discuss, I think.
끝났다.
Anyway, thank you all for listening. Thank you for your continued support, and I'll see you guys again in a couple of minutes. Bye.
바이바이. 끝났어. 자, 그래서 그렇고 제가 이제 내일이나 내일 모레 정도에 뭐 패치되는지 이제 정리해서 올리도록 하겠습니다. 호이 쪽은. 그러면 이제 게임은 다 봤으니까 저도 이만 자러 가도록 하겠습니다. 여기까지 이제 봤고 뭐 보실 분들은 따로 패러독스 메인 방송 가서 봐주시면 되겠습니다.